sure it's a busy schedule for today. Bonnie Girard. She's running in the 4th District of the state of Virginia. We have an app of that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bonnie Girard, and I am running for the Republican nomination for the 4th Congressional District of Virginia. And I'm going to call him the challenger. The person I am challenging is the incumbent Randy Forbes, who has been in the district for 11 years. He came in on a special election in 2001 when the incumbent died, and he fought for the nomination within the party, and he has been in ever since. The first thing that I want to talk about is why I'm challenging him. And I want to go to a question that this fellow here in the pink shirt raised a few minutes ago, and that is the Patriot Act, because these things are tied together for me. The first thing that you need to know about me is that I have spent 14 years the first time and another 4 years over the last decade in China. I went to China in 1987 on a grant and a fellowship from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I went for 1 year. I stayed for 14 years until 2001, at which point I had become so horrified and so disgusted and so frightened by what I have witnessed on a day-to-day basis has become the American relationship and dependence on China, something which has grown even greater over the last 10 years, that I felt it was incumbent upon me to come back to this country and begin telling the truth about this monster of a nation, not the people, the government, that we have embroiled ourselves with, and what the consequences are for us as Americans. So the first thing I want to talk about is suspension of habeas corpus. And that's what the Patriot Act does. The Patriot Act suspends habeas corpus. It means that people can be held indefinitely without the right of trial. And this is against every principle, every fundamental concept and foundation that this country is founded upon and has grown and thrived on. And if we allow ourselves to allow conditions like that to come into law, remain in law, then we are on a slippery slope to becoming the United States of China. Because let me tell you what happens when habeas corpus is suspended, when you can hold people indefinitely. Here is what I have witnessed in my life. I have witnessed people taken off the street for expressing views to reform their government, being thrown in jail, and never seeing the light of day again. I have worked with people who have been put in jail for calling a Western journalist to say, I have just seen people run over by a tank. I have friends who have been taken out of their apartments at 2 o'clock in the morning because they were gay and thrown in jail, not to see the light of day again for 4 years because they were expressing a personal choice and personal behavior that they felt was part of their inalienable human right to do so. I have a friend who was taken out of her apartment in the building block that I lived in at 4 in the morning because she had the audacity to be married to a white man. I have personally experienced segregation and repression for being a foreigner in China, not allowed to live with people who are Chinese, because I am a threat to them, because I believe in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of the vote, and freedom of assembly. And I dare say that everybody in this room, and even if we brought in a few people who belong to another political party in this country, everybody believes in those inalienable rights. And in China, they do not. When we start, for security reasons, saying that we have to lock people up and hold them without trial, this is a failure of our system, of our security services, and of our security forces, and it means that we are not able to do the job to protect this country that we should be able to do. If we're so bad at that, then what we need to do is not become an authoritarian state like China. We need to better our intelligence efforts. We need to better our legal security mechanisms. But the minute we begin suspending habeas corpus, we become that authoritarian state and we have to fight against it. Okay, that's got that one out of the way. Second thing I want to talk about is the free enterprise system. I'm hugely informed by what I saw and have lived and have witnessed over a total of 18 years in China. I have witnessed a country go from cradle to grave communism. You're born, you die, and in between the state takes care of you. Albeit at a very subsistence level. But cradle to grave, they take care of you. Every aspect, your job, your money, your food, your health care. I have witnessed an entire country go from that to having no social net whatsoever. China is no longer a communist country, although the Chinese Communist Party is the most powerful political party on earth, and the richest, and we made them that way. That's another story. To people having to fend for themselves, and guess what? They do it. And they do it very, very well. The entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well among the Chinese people. We need to refine that spirit here in America. But there's one problem. Any business in China, any business, is still controlled by the government. So I believe in the free enterprise system. I don't believe that my challenger does. I don't believe Randy Forbes is actually working for the free enterprise system. He is going around the country right now on taxpayer money, defending the defense budget. And I believe that what he is doing is defending the defense contractors. Because this is a man who, as a true conservative, should be going around the country on his own money, on private money, saying what we need to do to bolster this country is develop the private sector, because it's the private sector that provides the taxes that pays for all of those taxpayer-funded jobs. It's the private sector that is the foundation of this country and the wealth of this country and the talent of this country. So why a true conservative is running around talking about keeping as much taxpayer public money as he can in his district bothers me. Why he's doing it bothers me, and I believe, considering that he's taken over $250,000 in campaign contributions from 19 of the top defense contractors in this country that have been cited for fraud by the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice. I believe that his interests are not impartial. I believe that his interests have been influenced. I want to build the private sector, and I know how to do it because I've been doing it for 25 years. I'm a small business owner as well. I stopped taking a paycheck from anybody else about 16 years ago. It's very hard to do, and it's thrilling to do. You work twice as hard for half the money for the first few years of your life, but it's rewarding, and if any of you have ever done it, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, I urge you to do it at some point in your life. What we need to be doing, in my view, is building that free enterprise system. Here's the problem. We can't do it with China. I know that some of you may feel that any interference in the free enterprise system is an interference in using government, let's say, to manipulate the economy. But here's the problem. I believe in the free enterprise system, but when you go to a country that does not believe or work in the free enterprise system, like China, then you're playing asynchronous warfare. We don't need to be depending on a country. This country loses a job to China every 2 minutes. I have the statistics if you would like to see them. Every 2 minutes. We need to de-link our economies. We need to build our own private sector. And we need to stop selling our debt to China because they are not an ally and they do not wish us well. So, I've talked about 3 things. I've talked about suspension of habeas corpus and the Patriot Act, and I've talked about free enterprise, and I've talked about building private sector jobs. And now I'd like to hear any of your questions. So let's keep in mind that we have a few more candidates who would like to have a word today. But I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Yes, please.
What's your position on immigration?
Legal or illegal?
All of those.
Okay. First of all, I have to tell you, my husband is British, and he lives in the United States. So I'm kind of for him. And let me tell you what we went through for him to come to this country. We met in China. We met actually in an Irish environment, in the Irish embassy law, and it had to happen. So we decided to come back. We own our businesses together. We decided to come to the States to build one of them. We work closely with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership to export Virginia goods and services to China. Export goods and services from here to China. But in order for him to be here, he had to go through a process of legal residency. Now guess what? He doesn't want to immigrate to the United States because he is as proud of his nationality as a Brit as we are of our nationality as Americans. He will not change his nationality for the convenience of economic accessibility. For 4 years, it took us 4 years to get him a green card, so he's a legal resident of the United States, but he has to renew it, and he will only ever be a resident. It is absolutely imperative that we do something about illegal immigration, in my view, because I do consider it to be illegal. Here's the problem. A lot of good people come in, but from the beginning, they've broken the law. I've lived overseas for a long time. I've seen a lot of corruption and a lot of tricks played by people. We have enough people here who compromise our country. Do we really need more whose first act on entering the country is illegal? By definition, they told us they're willing to break the law. My feeling is no. We don't want people who are willing to hold our laws in contempt. I think that's hugely important. We either are or are not a nation of laws. That's what holds us together. That's our common soup. So illegal immigration, I believe, we absolutely need to control. There are some countries we need to control it from more than others. One of those, frankly, is China. It might surprise you that I say that. I see China as a bigger threat than any other potential country in terms of immigration into this country because we don't know who they are. And I can tell you that as we sit here right now, the American Embassy in Beijing and the consulates in Guangzhou and Shanghai and Chengdu and Shenyang have hundreds. At the embassy in Beijing alone, they have 200 people alone who review the applications for immigration to the United States and the visa applications to the United States for fraud. And they find that 80% of those applications have some element of fraud in them. People who are willing to cheat to get here are not people I want to come here. So that's my view. Let's invite good, solid immigrants from other countries that enhance our world, not people who are willing to undermine and hold in contempt the laws which make us strong. We thank you for your question.
Thank you.